I mean, really? Once again, we find ourselves, and I don't mean our like you see people saying, well, we or our talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean our, like all of us here in this city. We're right. Imagine that. And I think, look, you're going to see a couple of different types of reactions from the Philadelphia Eagles dismantling of the Denver Broncos. One, I think, is just going to be rah, rah, break the pom-poms out. Teams go into the playoffs, which is typical. I get it. I'm not knocking, but I think that's one avenue people will take for sure. There's also trying to just break down what happened. Well, they did this and just go through number. Now we're going to get you a 3 takeaways, and Kyle Neubeck, Matt Mullin going to join me to break things down and look ahead at the end here. But I think for me personally, what really has stood out is more of a theme that has gone on, not only with the Philadelphia Eagles on the field, but also with us as the fans. And look, I think that's a big issue of what we have always dealt with as being a vocal, passionate fan base that certain people get and certain people don't. Certain players understand what it's like to be with us. Others just don't like it, and it's not for them. The Eagles have run the ball effectively at worst, impressive at best. 3 straight games with a $175, at least 175 on the ground. That isn't just impressive. That's establishing an identity. That's committing to an identity. That right there, 3 straight weeks, 3 different games, 3 different scripts, 3 different ways in which this thing went down. Eagles blew out Detroit like it wasn't even a thing. They lost last second to the Chargers. There were some issues clearly there, and this wasn't 100% beautiful against the Denver Broncos, but they were able to beat a team in a different manner while still using the same approach on offense. The fact that we were right, the fact that we got it right again. What are you doing wasting time in the beginning of the season trying to figure out who Jalen Hurts is or should be when you know damn well who he is? He's the same quarterback who played well last year in spurts. He's the same quarterback that played great in college. He didn't change overnight because your coaching staff changed overnight. And they wasted a lot of time trying to just figure things out. We knew who Devontae Smith was. At the very least, the one thing we knew would transfer over is route running speed. Those two combined to one trait would transfer into the NFL immediately. And it has. Exceptional. It's the brightest spot of the day in Denver. Devontae Smith was the difference maker on offense. Devontae Smith accounting for the 2 touchdowns. Devontae Smith was a monster once again. And look, Surtain, that defense, not bad. Tough to score against Denver. But we were right. The fans were right. Yeah, you could celebrate the Eagles' victory. That's part of it. But don't forget that all of this complaining and all of this tweeting and all of this bashing and writing and talking, everything came from a grounded spot, came from a position of fact, not just wild emotion. And it's necessary to talk about that as much as you out there today and moving forward this week will talk about the victory, talk about the fact that we got something right. Doesn't mean you're always going to be right. And when we get it wrong, we say we got it wrong. But we didn't really get it wrong with Nick Sirianni. And that's why I bring this up. We didn't get it wrong with the offense. We didn't get it wrong with their ability to do something. We didn't look at Nick Sirianni and say, well, you can't do this. And then all of a sudden he showed us, yes, you can. We asked him to do something that was basic and simple. And he finally did. What? He finally did. We asked a very simple question. Can you please start committing to running the football? Can you please? No, even yelling at Howie Roseman on this one. Just the team, just Sirianni. And what do we get? A commitment to running the ball 3 straight weeks. We'll talk about the defense and the 3 big keys here. Matt Mullin, Kyle Neubeck as well. But I'm going to leave you with this thought on the offense. Jalen Hurts isn't a problem. Jalen Hurts isn't the problem. He won't be. The Philadelphia Eagles have figured out, I think, two things with Hurts. One, how to use him most effectively throughout a football game where he's never the reason why you lose a game. Now, you can look at game script here and say the Eagles got a couple of breaks. Absolutely, they did. From Denver meltdowns to a dropped interception, and thank you, Devontae Smith. But yeah, absolutely, you can. You can say that in the second half, things weren't great by any means, but a lead was established and Denver was just out. That offense isn't built to come from behind by multiple scores. It's just not. And that's a big thing that's going to be left out when discussing the defense. And I don't want to even get to a negative or down that road. It's just something important about the offense. The first is that they've officially, and I think effectively, figured out how to use Hurts so that he's not the reason why you lose a football game. And on the ground, he's always going to be in play for the reason why you win or stay in a game. They also, I think, have realized, and for better or worse, I don't know what this means. Some people will tell you that this means the end of Jalen Hurts. Others will tell you that they've just found out how to win with a guy that they don't really like as far as style, and style meaning that you can't throw 40, 50 times a game. I don't know why you would want that, but apparently the Philadelphia Eagles front office reportedly, allegedly has this belief. And I know we've seen it before, but it doesn't mean that they stick to it when you have something different. Let's give credit to the defense, to the players on the field. Guys on the field made plays. You punch a ball out, you run a ball back for a score. Guys on the field made plays. They physically beat men right up on that line to get to Teddy Bridgewater. Denver Broncos down 3 offensive linemen, okay? But they got to Teddy and they got to Denver's offense, and they did a good job, and the offense really won the game for the defense. The offense made it exceptionally easier for the defense, and then a couple of boneheaded plays. I mean, that return for Slay was beautiful, but that should never have happened. The hell are they thinking? Going for it, 4th and 1, with a chip shot field goal, down 7, still in the third quarter. Decisions. Yeah, they did a great job on Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, who were insane last week because they were up by 1,000,000 points last week. They were down this week. Denver's offense crumbles when you get up. Credit the Eagles. They had another game plan that worked. You have to get up first in order to run the football down somebody's throat. And we've seen that now happen, and it's a beautiful thing 3 weeks in a row. Let's bring in Kyle Neubeck, Matt Mullin, Philly Voice, the good, the bad, and the ugly up from Kyle, and you'll see plenty from Matt this week regarding this gigantic Philadelphia Eagles victory in Denver. And I guess, Matt, I'm curious how Kyle found any ugly. How did you, and what did you find, Kyle, in a win like this on the road as ugly?
Well, whenever Derek Barnett actually gets to play in an Eagles game, that that by almost definition is going to fit into the ugly. I know that he got on the sack board today, which everybody will obviously be somewhat happy about. I don't know that makes them forget the two. Just I guess I should say one of them was a toss-up call. A lot of people thought it was a weak roughing the passer call, but when you have a reputation like that guy, the benefit of the doubt does not go your way. And it just feels like, if he was not, and I wrote this in I don't remember if it was the first half or final today. If he wasn't a first round pick, he wouldn't be playing. Yeah. Like they wouldn't tolerate the amount of penalties that he takes week after week. And like the type of penalties too. They're always just mental mistakes. It's never like, he was making a play on the ball and something goofy happened. It's always just like downright stupid stuff. So I can't stand watching the guy anymore. So he's almost always in the ugly for me.
Who's the Sixers equivalent of Derek Barnett? On the spot right there for that one.
Well, it would be like, so Derek Barnett's equivalent in the ugly would be like if Dwight Howard only got the technical fouls last year. Like if he didn't have any of the energy plays like that the other night, the like that, the hustle plays and that kind of stuff. It's like an Andre Drummond game where he has 6 fouls and all his passes are sent to like the third row of the Wells Fargo Center. So it's tough to draw a parallel, honestly.
I think you did okay with those two, by all means.
Backup centers only.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, here's the thing. We have to be happy, I think, overall, right? I mean, you look at the offense, 3 straight weeks, $175 plus on the ground. I'm not willing to crown Jonathan Gannon yet as far as, turning a corner, but it's amazing what happens when your players make plays. I think overall we have to be happy, right, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, today we saw something, on all 3 sides of the ball. I mean, you saw that against the Lions, but it was the Lions. Last week it was, offense looked good, defense looked terrible. And this week, I thought we saw Gannon make some changes, press a little bit more. He blitzed again. He blitzed last week, but like Jimmy wrote for us last week, they just weren't getting home on the blitz. They were just poor blitz schemes. So this week they did a little bit better there, but I don't think they needed to. And hey, they kept Bridgewater not even below 80. They kept him below 70%. So that's a step in the right direction. But like last week, I think, we were afraid to say, has this team found its offensive identity? I think you, me and Evan talked about that last week, saying, we were afraid to say that this was now a run team. And I think now they went into Denver, who was a good run defense, and they ran all over them. I think it's safe to say that Sirianni has found his identity. So yeah, that's something that's very encouraging coming out of the game like this.
I think you can see, just having a power back like Jordan Howard, a guy who's getting north-south, and like, look, I know he's not going to break off like a play that Miles Sanders might for, 50 yards or whatever it is. But there are a lot of plays where a guy like Miles Sanders will be dancing in the backfield and he'll lose the hole and it'll be a negative play. Whereas Jordan Howard hits the first hole he sees, he's getting them 4 or 5 yards a pop, and he's putting them in situations where it is 2nd and 6 or 3rd and 2. Or if the offensive line does open up a hole, then he's just bursting through it for, 10, 15 yards, and they're moving the ball down the field, and it's making play action more dangerous. And that's not to say that Miles Sanders, with more of an opportunity to run the ball, couldn't do this stuff. But I think just you see the purposefulness that Howard runs with sort of fits with the way they're playing, and everything is kind of moving off of one another. So I agree with Matt. I think they really have found an identity, and I think the run game, I think getting the ball to Smith more obviously makes a difference. There's a lot of pieces are coming together.
So I wonder,
real quick,
yeah,
while you were just talking about the run game, real quick, I just want to say, do you think it's just a total coincidence that them finding the identity as being a run-first team just happened to coincide with Miles Sanders going down? Like, that's just a total coincidence, right?
I wouldn't say, I don't think it's a total coincidence. I do think like there have been a few people on Twitter that I've seen that have like, well, this just kind of shows they don't really trust Miles Sanders. And there's got to be there's got to be something to that, right? Like, it's not like they were giving him the ball that often, and now it's the whole team or the whole offensive identity is built around running the ball, and that's intertwined with what they want to do, dropping back, rather than Jalen Hurts dropping back 45, 50 times to throw the ball. That was obviously not a successful formula for them. So some of it is the figuring out who they are, and some of it is maybe he just expects now that they're not going to be these negative plays they have to live with, and a little more comfortable running the ball.
So I think, honestly, it's pure coincidence. And I know this is going to sound crazy on the surface, but just hear me out, because I think, Kyle, you made the point that a lot of people are just easily overlooking, because it's so simple to just point to Sanders and say, wow, take him out of the equation, and now they run all over the place. I actually do think it's way more coincidental than not, if not purely coincidental. What I don't think is coincidental in any sense, and that's probably the most I'll use that word now, but what I don't think at all is by accident, is the stripping down of Jalen Hurts throwing the football. And as a result, this team being run first, knowing that they have an amazing weapon on the ground with the quarterback. And I think today, was probably the limit of what they would ideally like to have Jalen Hurts throwing the football. And that I don't think is coincidental at all with how this offense has shifted. And I don't know, is that like concerning for Hurts moving forward, or are we in the results business where it's like, just win, baby?
I mean, some of it is, if you want him to be this ironclad franchise guy, you have to say, yeah, like there are limitations. And up to this week, that had been my big point. It's like, it's great that they're competitive and 2 out of these last 3 games that they've come away with wins. But, ultimately you're evaluating, this is a developmental season and you want to see Hurts taking steps forward. And if they have to scale down the offense to this level, like what does that actually say about the program? Now, today in that first half, I think you did see some things like, obviously if you complete all your passes or most of your passes, you're always going to look good. But I think some of the stuff like manipulating the pocket and sidestepping guys and maybe not scrambling and hanging in there long enough to, the play that Dallas got hurt on.
Yeah.
He bought himself, maybe like extra second of time in the pocket, hits that throw. And that's an intermediate throw, intermediate gain. That's a nice play. And those are the sort of plays that we haven't seen from him. And his downfield accuracy was great, like great 50-50 ball to Devontae Smith, where he got it there before the safety help arrives. So you're just saying, look, this is my number 1 guy. I'm giving him a chance to go up and get a touchdown. The throw to Quez Watkins that he dropped, that was an absolute beauty that should have been a touchdown. So look, there was a ton of good stuff today. Does it mean that he's the guy? No, but I think at least you're seeing progress as they are changing the identity, and it's not just, hey, run the ball 50 times and it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust for 4 quarters.
Yeah, I agree. There was a play late in the first half. I think it was on the Eagles' final possession of the first half where Hurts looked, moved, shifted the pocket, and then found Gainwell, dumped it out for a great first down pickup. And that was something we hadn't seen. He would normally, just after the first read wasn't there, tuck it, go. In terms of, you asking Eytan what this means for him going forward, I think there is some concern if you're looking at him as the long term, because I don't know that necessarily this is the style of offense Jeffrey Lurie wants to run long term. So I think if he's the guy ultimately deciding whether Hurts is going to be the long term quarterback, that might spell trouble, because he wants to be a pass first, pass heavy kind of guy.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And look, we don't know how things will play out towards the end of the season if Hurts is able to make some throws, step into some throws, and clear up some accuracy issues, as Kyle hinted at. So I do think that there's ground here clearly for him to cover. But look, there's one thing I think when we looked at this team coming into the season, especially on offense, we all wanted expectations of growth and just seeing who can fit and who can play, long-term solutions, all that. All right, let's just put that aside here. Devontae Smith is an NFL wide receiver. This kid might, and look, I hate to use hyperbole here. I'm not John McMullen. I didn't see Harold Carmichael play with my own eyes and all. But my goodness, I'm 42 years old. I've grown up an Eagles fan all my life, even from out of this area. I don't remember outside of T.O. for a year and a quarter, anybody being able to run a route like Devontae Smith, combined with the speed and everything. And again, I know I sound hyperbolic, and I'm sure there are people out there like, no. But my goodness, we're not even a full season in, and boy, did they knock it out of the park with this kid.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems we were seeing in previous weeks, well, not last week, obviously, because he had another big game last week, but throughout the season, is that Hurts was waiting until he was open to throw passes to him. And by that time, the separation that Devontae is creating through his route running, that's been closed down. Like the defender is getting there. What I think was really encouraging from the two of them today is that Jalen was throwing passes before he was getting open, and he was trusting him. Hey, I know you're going to beat this guy, despite the fact that he had a really tough matchup in Denver against Patrick Surtain. Like that's another top 10 pick guy of his caliber on the other side of the ball. And he's trusting Devontae that he's going to beat him on those routes. And he let him make that 50-50 play in the end zone. And I think that trust is allowing him to look closer to the guy that, won the Heisman and made all kinds of highlight reel plays when he was in college.
Yeah, I don't think, you can't possibly be, over exaggerating his talent and stuff. Like Kyle just said, he did win the Heisman last year. He was a top 10 pick. I mean, it's not Travis Fulgham that we're talking about where he's had a couple good games and everyone's saying, this guy's a legit number one. I mean, I think we all expected Devonta Smith to be a, stud wideout, and he's living up to that and looking better each week.
All right, final thought here. It's a quick one on the way out. We're going to be riding high this week. Clearly, the Eagles went out and they won that game. It's not Detroit who laid down. They had to fight and beat a decent team, definitely a good defense by all means. So let's do this really quick. I don't need a score or anything like that, but I'm just curious if you smell letdown in the air. Saints come to town. The Eagles are brutal at home. They're great on the road. Letdown game here?
Doesn't that mean they're due if they've been bad at home? That's
is
that the gambler's fallacy?
Yes, I guess you're right.
They're due for one.
Exactly right. No, I think I'd ride the trend until it bursts. I'd be on the other side and still think this. And look, it's not that I want them to lose. It's a tight line. Speaking of that opening up, you see this all the time in the league, right? A team goes on the road, they have a big victory, they come back home, and it's like, a letdown. So that's what I would think. Not to say that they're going to stink it up, but just that in its own right.
Yeah, you see it? I think the Saints have been a tough team for me to get a read on all year. I haven't been able to quite figure them out, so I'm going to have to dig into them more this week. But I think
Kamara's healthy because he missed today. So that was clearly a big miss. Trevor Siemian needs all the help he can get.
Right, exactly. And I think with the Eagles playing, if they stick with this style of game, it's going to keep them in more games. So I don't think there's any reason looking at it now to think that they won't be in it towards the end of the game. And like Kyle said, they're due.
Yeah, and look, here's what I would say. I think as we talk about Hurts and evaluating him for the long term, I think the reason that you might have concerns is like, okay, he can win these games against the Teddy Bridgewaters, the Jared Goffs, the Sam Darnolds, older Matt Ryan. Like those are the wins he has. It's against guys who are either old or not very good for the most part. And this is another week where he's going to be up against a guy like that. So I don't think they have a whole lot of concerns coming into this one. Like maybe not that Jameis Winston is like a consistently very good quarterback, but he at least gives them some kind of ceiling that they can hit. So I'm not that worried, but when Jalen has to go against the top level QBs and they have to win shootouts, that's when I'd be more worried about, can they keep this identity? Can they stick to the run? Blah, blah, blah. Like that. I'm not worried about it this week, but it's definitely something to monitor moving forward.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, fellas.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
All right, let's look at our three big takeaways here, our three big keys of the game as the Denver Broncos lose bad at home to the Philadelphia Eagles. Number one, and this is for me, your three may be different. That's fine. You can always leave a comment below. Make sure you're subscribed here to the channel and hit that thumbs up button. So here's the thing. For me, number one, and we always love your three keys. We read them. I know you think, the show's over. No. We read everything. Number one, Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith. He has the DNA in him. Outside of T.O., who never brought in here organically. That was a year and a quarter. He has the DNA in him to be the best wide receiver ever selected by the Philadelphia Eagles. Did you hear me? And I mean playing, not some random scenario back. Oh, he traded it. No. Selected to play. You are looking at somebody who has the DNA to become the best Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver. Some stats are going to be tilted because it's a passing league now versus when Harold Carmichael played. I'm not here to slight anybody by any means. We love the legend and others out there, but let's be fair here. This is now a league that is geared towards the offense. This is a league where if you have speed, you already have an advantage. Now, on top of that, there is far less what can be done to your body when the ball's in the air. Add the speed, add that era that we're playing in, add his ability, this near uncanny ability that we've seen at least. And again, you go back to T.O., you have to go back to T.O. Devonta Smith runs routes better than we've ever seen anybody here, except for T.O. And think about this. I'm not even being hyperbolic I know that's a big word for me even to use. So I'm not even being over the top here. I say we see the DNA in it. He is dominating when he can get open with space and speed. And guess what? His ability to run routes with speed combined makes him near impossible to defend. And Jalen Hurts took full advantage of it, threw him open, which is tough with a guy like this, the speed that he has. Threw Smith open, 2 touchdowns in the air for Devontae Smith. The targets have been there, and now it's just a matter of adding the touchdowns. Bang. Number one takeaway is Devontae Smith didn't even need a full season to prove that he belongs as a number one wide receiver in the NFL, and that would be for the Philadelphia Eagles. No, I don't mean number one like the best. I mean number one like he is clearly the Philadelphia Eagles' number one wide receiver. And this is not by default like we had last year. No shade, but to Travis Fulgham. This is a true number one wide receiver in the NFL in the making. And we're going to be talking about him week in and week out next year as a top 10 to top 5 wide receiver each week based on performance. Huge takeaway. Number 2, the defense. Now, I need to see consistency from Jonathan Gannon before I even bring him back up to, okay, great, you've done your job. Nick Sirianni was not given any benefit of the doubt after Detroit, barely given some benefit of the doubt after the Chargers game, now has been because he's shown 3 straight weeks of consistency. Jonathan Gannon has yet to do that, but bailed out. So I'm not even focusing. Nothing that I saw from Gannon was anything special or improved or anything along those lines. This was a defense of talent that made plays. This was a defense out there, and you can't always reduce it to, well, one team was better than the other on the field. Sometimes it is schematic. Sometimes it is putting people in a certain spot. Sometimes it's anticipating play calling. Now, Denver doesn't have a wide array of things to do on offense, and I get that, but at the same time, people up front delivered pressure. That was gigantic. People up front caused chaos. They wreaked havoc on that down, and granted, they were down 3 starters, and rightfully so. The Eagles took advantage of it, weakened Denver Broncos offensive line. Huge right there. Also, linebacker core still split. There's some good, there's some bad. I don't know how much you're relying on guys consistently. Still need to find something, I think, in the middle. But here's the thing. Darius Slay playing, even though there was concern this week he would not play, comes out and delivers a game-defining moment. That wasn't being put in the right position. That wasn't, oh, okay, Slay, we're changing your position here on this one look, on this one coverage. We're not moving him to a monster back or to a safety. There's nothing along those lines of any type of intricacies or schematics that were involved. It was a man was out there on the field and he made a play. And Darius Slay made a big play. And that ended the Denver Broncos. Right there, the game was over. As soon as he crossed the end zone and they realized it really was a fumble, that was it. It went from a minimum field goal right there, right? 4 points to 14-point swing. You're not going to overcome that by any means. Last, I don't know how much you want to give shouts. I don't know how much you want to give props. I don't even know how much it's on your radar, but Mike Clay and this unit deserve some props here for me, at least. They deserve a nod here. Blocked a field goal. Jake Elliott kicking the ball well. You have a consistent punter here, especially if a drive stalls. You know that you can pin a team. And it's been the most consistent unit throughout the entire season. And we saw it again. It wasn't like, and it's odd, but glaring, of course, if you need help, your special teams unit needs to be picked up. Maybe you're missing a couple of field goals, a bad punt, a block kick, what have you. Eagles delivered that on the other end. And that's tough. When Jake Elliott is knocking kicks in, when you're putting equal pressure on an opposing field goal unit by blocking a kick, we can pretty much lock up that CPAS has the punt no matter where it's from. Clay comes in as a first-year coach here, too. And we talk all the time about Gannon, and we talk all the time about Nick Sirianni. Well, what about the special teams coach? And how great, and granted, he took over the most complete veteran roster with the kicking unit at least, but there's still some things that have been done here, and it's been pretty impressive, and it's worth the nod. And when you have an offense that we talked at length about, you have a defense that deserves props on the field for guys making plays, we should mention what that special teams unit did because it was beyond impressive once again for a consistent week. All right, let's make this short. Let's make this sweet. I think if you are a betting individual, you should, and you're watching this early in the week, you should get the Saints while they're still plus money. We saw this with the Chargers. I think the same thing is going to happen. I don't mean to be negative, ruin your parade, anything along those lines. I just want to be at least accurate up front with at least some betting information here. And you could take it as advice, or you could push it off, or you could even fade it and say, pounding the Philadelphia Eagles. But if you like the Saints, I don't think this lasts too long here, especially with the quarterback situation up in the air. Here is the biggest concern that I have. And I feel like we are all somewhat, even if you're not vocal about it, we are all waiting for that other foot to drop to where we're brought back from the honeymoon phase and Jalen Hurts throws the ball 50 times and they don't run the ball. And we're asking, what the hell just happened to the past 3 weeks? This is my biggest concern heading into New Orleans. It's nothing with the defense. It's nothing with the special teams. It's everything to do with the offense. And I'm not even blaming Nick Sirianni yet. I'm not like preemptively blaming him. What I'm saying is be concerned. Be prepared and be concerned for one of the, if not the toughest rushing defenses in the NFL. And it's not just going to be, hey, Hurts can do whatever the hell he wants on the ground and open things up for Boston Scott. This is now a challenge. This is now about scheming guys. This is now about using Jalen Hurts to his best ability. Instead, what I am concerned about, and it's why I think you should pop on the Saints even money now, is that they'll take that early stoppage of the run against this Saints rush defense and turn this into we got to throw the football. Trevor Siemian or not, that's my concern, because it's not even like we need to keep up with the Saints. It's we're not going to move the football down the field if we don't throw it. And then when it's all said and done, we look at an Eagles loss at home. It'll be their 5th straight. We're looking up at the scoreboard, looking at the box score, asking how in the world did Jalen Hurts go from such a controlled passing game to throwing 53 times? Hopefully I'm wrong in that regard, but the good news is that we have a full week to enjoy that Eagles smashing of the Broncos.